My name is Anna Kensington, and I'm 28 years old. On paper, my life looks like the kind of thing people post humble brag captions about on Instagram. I work as a financial analyst at Hartford Insurance Group here in Connecticut. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, and it pays well. Well enough that I rent my own apartment in West Hartford, a bright modern one-bedroom with a tiny balcony and just enough space for a small dining table and a plant I keep forgetting to water. My coworkers think I'm doing great. My neighbors nod at me in the hallway like I've got everything figured out. If you drove past my parents' house in Farmington, you'd see the rest of the picture: the tidy lawn, the seasonal wreath on the front door, the comfortable two-story home that always smells like some kind of casserole or pot roast on Sundays. You'd see family photos on the walls, birthday banners, Christmas decorations. What you wouldn't see is the part of my life that's been quietly driving me insane. You wouldn't see how I somehow became the default solution whenever anyone in my family needed a problem fixed, especially when that problem had sticky fingers and unlimited energy. My sister, Stephanie, is 5 years older than me. She's 33, married to her husband, Derek, and they live in a nice colonial in Avon. They have 2 kids, Brandon, who's 9, and little Chloe, who's 7. On paper, they're the picture of a normal suburban family too. Holiday photos and matching pajamas, school concerts, soccer practice, all of it. But there's one detail that those photos don't show. Every single Saturday, without fail, my front door might as well be their personal drop-off zone. It started small. A favor here, a last-minute babysitting request there. Anna, could you watch the kids just this once? Derek and I really need a night out. I said yes. Of course I did. It's family. And I love Brandon and Chloe. They're sweet and hilarious and better company than most adults I know. But just this once turned into every Saturday so fast I almost didn't notice the line being crossed. Now this is the routine. At 8:30 a.m. sharp, there's a knock at my door. Not a tentative, polite knock. A bright, confident one, like the person on the other side already knows the answer. I'll be in pajamas, maybe halfway through my first cup of coffee. I open the door, and there's Stephanie, hair perfectly styled, makeup on, wearing something comfortable but trendy. Brandon and Chloe are next to her, already kicking off their shoes in the hallway, backpacks hanging off their shoulders. "Hey, Anna," Stephanie sings like she's greeting a roommate. The kids are so excited to spend the day with their favorite aunt. And before I can say anything like, "Did we talk about this?" or "I actually had plans today," she's kissing them on the forehead, handing me a reusable bag full of snacks and just-in-case clothes. "I'll be back around 9, okay? Love you, bye." The elevator doors close on her smile before my brain finishes forming the word, wait. Meanwhile, Brandon and Chloe are already in my living room, arguing over which movie to put on, asking if we can bake cookies, tugging at my hands. And I cave. Because what am I supposed to do? Slam the door in their faces? So my Saturdays disappear into a blur of board games, cartoons, cleaning up crumbs, and trying to stop Chloe from feeding her carrots to my already confused plant. By the time Stephanie returns, usually closer to 9:30 than 9 o'clock, she's radiant and relaxed. "Thank you so much, Anna," she says, breezing in with the faint smell of expensive perfume and restaurant wine. "You're a lifesaver. We went shopping at Legacy Place, had dinner at Capitol Grill. It was exactly what we needed." She says we, like she's including me in the relief. Like I also spent the day at a steakhouse instead of scraping dried mac and cheese off my couch cushions. At first I told myself it was temporary. They're stressed, I thought. They work hard. I'm single, no kids. I can help out. But weeks turned into months. Just this once became, this is what family does. And one morning, as I was watching Brandon and Chloe chase each other in circles around my coffee table for the 5th straight Saturday, something inside me started to quietly protest. Maybe it would have stayed quiet if I hadn't been so tired. One Sunday morning, after a 12-hour babysitting marathon, I woke up feeling like someone had poured concrete into my bones. My voice actually cracked when I called Stephanie. "Hey, Steph," I started, trying to sound lighter than I felt. "Can we talk about the Saturday thing?" There was a pause. "What about it?" I stared at the coffee in my mug, wishing it was stronger. I love spending time with Brandon and Chloe, you know that. But every Saturday is a lot. I was hoping we could work out some kind of schedule so I can have a few weekends to myself sometimes. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Then her voice came back, already sharpened. "Anna, I can't believe you're being so selfish." My stomach dropped. "Selfish? This is what family does for each other," she said. Derek and I work so hard all week, and we barely get any time together. You don't have kids. You don't have a husband. What else are you doing on Saturdays anyway? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. What was I doing on Saturdays? Wanting to rest, wanting to maybe go on a date, wanting to see friends, wanting to sit in silence and not be needed by anyone for a few hours. I also work all week, I tried. Sometimes I'd like to go out or just relax, or you can date on Friday nights or Sunday nights, she cut in, like she'd thought it through and decided my life could be rearranged around her convenience. And your friends can hang out with you and the kids. It's not that complicated, Anna. Brandon and Chloe adore you. You're basically their second mom. I hung up that call, feeling like someone had flipped the script and cast me as the villain in a story I didn't know we were telling. Still, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe this was what being a good aunt meant. But the feeling didn't go away. A few weeks later, I decided to try a different approach. Maybe, I thought, if Mom and Dad heard it, they'd understand my side. Maybe they'd help me talk to Stephanie. So I went to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. Their dining room was exactly the same as it had always been. Same heavy wooden table, same faded floral curtains, same framed picture of Stephanie's family on the sideboard, and a much smaller photo of me tucked almost out of sight near the end. Mom passed the mashed potatoes. Dad carved the pot roast. The TV murmured softly from the living room. Mom, I said, after everyone had started eating, I wanted to talk to you about something. She looked up, smiling. Of course, honey, what's on your mind? I took a breath. It's about watching Brandon and Chloe every Saturday. I love them, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I was wondering if maybe Stephanie and I could work out some kind of rotation, or maybe not every weekend. Dad barely looked up from his plate. Those children are family, he said. You help family. Mom set down her fork and gave me a look I recognized immediately. The disappointed one from childhood. The one that always made me feel 5 inches tall. Honey, she said softly, I raised you better than this. The words hit harder than I expected. Stephanie works so hard, Mom continued. She deserves to have some time with her husband. You're single. You don't have responsibilities like she does. And honestly, taking care of Brandon and Chloe is the best preparation you could ask for when you get married and have children of your own. You'll be grateful for all this experience one day. But what if I want to date now? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. What if I want to go out with friends on Saturdays? I feel like I never get a break. Stephanie jumped in before Mom could answer. You can date on Fridays or Sundays. Your friends can come over and hang out with you and the kids. We've already talked about this, Anna. You're making it more complicated than it needs to be. Dad nodded. Your sister's right. Family comes first. Always. I stared at my plate, the food suddenly tasteless. I could feel the familiar mixture of frustration and guilt twisting in my chest. On the surface, the conversation ended there. I smiled weakly, said I understood, and changed the subject. But something had shifted inside me. On the drive back to West Hartford, the sky dark outside my windshield, I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. They didn't hear me. They didn't even try to. In their eyes, I wasn't a grown woman with a demanding job and a life of my own. I was available, convenient, a built-in solution, the free nanny. And I didn't know it yet, but the thing that would finally rip that role apart was already on the horizon. A phone call about Christmas, a catering order, and a conversation I was never meant to hear. 3 weeks before Christmas, my phone rang while I was at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet that looked more like abstract art than quarterly projections. I glanced at the caller ID, Mom. Mom. I sighed, took a sip of lukewarm coffee, and answered. Hey, Mom. Hi, sweetheart, she said, voice warm and overly cheerful. That tone always meant she wanted something. I'm calling about Christmas. There it was. I leaned back in my chair. Okay, what about it? We're going to have a big celebration this year, she announced, like she was talking about a royal gala. Your Aunt Patricia is coming with her 3 kids, and Uncle Robert and Aunt Karen are bringing their 2. Plus, Derek's parents and his brother's family will be there. They're bringing their children as well. I did quick math in my head, the way my job had trained me to do without thinking. Aunt Patricia, 3 kids. Uncle Robert and Aunt Karen, 2 kids. Derek's brother's family, at least a couple. Stephanie's 2. Wow, I said slowly. That's a lot of people. It's going to be wonderful, Mom went on. A real family Christmas. Full house, lots of laughter, just like when you and Stephanie were little. Her nostalgia didn't land the way she probably intended. When I was little, I'd been the one setting the table while everyone else talked. The one cleaning up while the adults drank coffee and praised what a good helper I was. "What do you need me to bring?" I asked carefully. "Well, actually," Mom said, and I could almost hear her leaning forward. "That's what I'm calling about. I don't think I can cook for that many people by myself. It's just too much, especially with everything else I have to organize. I was hoping you could take care of ordering food from a restaurant. You know, get some nice catering so everyone has plenty to eat." The way she said it, I was hoping, like it was a small favor, made my chest tighten. I turned in my chair to face the window, looking out at the gray December sky. "How many people are we talking about exactly?" "About 28 total," she replied. "I know it's a lot to ask, but you're doing so well at your job, Anna, and the rest of us are struggling a bit financially right now." There it was, the subtle guilt trip, wrapped in concern. I stared at my own reflection in the glass. 28 people. Catering for that many wouldn't just be a little extra. It would be a serious chunk of my paycheck. Money I'd planned to put toward my savings. Maybe a small trip. Maybe anything that was just for me. Part of me wanted to say no. To say, "I can bring a dessert, Mom. Maybe a side dish. But I'm not paying for a banquet for nearly 30 people." Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay, I'll handle the catering." Relief flooded her voice. "Oh, thank you so much, honey. You're such a good daughter. I'll send you a list of everyone's favorite dishes so you know what to order." "Sure," I murmured. "No problem." When I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long moment, then set it down and returned to my spreadsheet. The numbers blurred. "Everything okay?" my coworker Jenna asked, passing by my desk. "Yeah," I lied. "Just Christmas stuff." She grimaced. "Say no more." That evening, I sat at my tiny dining table with my laptop open, credit card next to me, and Mom's long text filled with dish requests: prime rib, turkey, sides, vegetarian options, desserts. Enough food to make my bank account whimper. I ended up placing a huge order with Seasons, a well-known restaurant in Avon. I clicked through the menu, added dishes, and watched the total climb. $2,000. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. They required a $1,500 deposit, with the rest due on delivery. I put in my card details, my fingers feeling oddly numb, and hit confirm. A confirmation email popped up. I stared at it like it was a contract I hadn't really read. "This is fine," I muttered to myself. "It's just one time. It's family. It'll make them happy." And for a few days, I tried to believe that. Work kept me busy, and whenever anxiety whispered about the bill, I shoved it aside with the promise of a big, warm, happy family Christmas. Exactly 1 week before Christmas, my phone rang again at the office. Unknown number. "This is Anna," I answered. "Hi, Ms. Kensington. This is Ashley from Seasons Restaurant," a chipper voice said. "I'm calling about your Christmas Eve catering order." I straightened up a little. "Hi, Ashley. Is everything okay?" "Well," she hesitated, "we're having an issue with one of your dishes, the prime rib. Our supplier had some problems, and we won't be able to provide it. We'd like to offer glazed ham as a substitute at the same price. Would that work for you?" I felt a flicker of disappointment. Prime rib had been the star of Mom's wish list. Let me check with my family," I said. "Can I call you back?" "Of course. Just let us know as soon as you can so we can finalize everything." We hung up. I immediately called Mom. Straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Mom. Leave a message and I'll call you back." I hung up without leaving one and tried Dad. Voicemail. I tried Stephanie. Voicemail again. It was like they'd all collectively tossed their phones into a snowbank. I checked the time. If I drove straight from work, I could get to my parents' house in about 40 minutes. Someone had to be home. I didn't want to make a decision about a main dish and then get blamed for choosing the wrong one. At 6:20 p.m., I pulled into the familiar driveway. Snow dusted the edges of the lawn, the porch light was on, and warm yellow light glowed from the living room window. I used my own key to let myself in, like I'd always done. The house was warm, smelling faintly of Mom's meatloaf and something baking. I was just about to call out, "Mom," when I heard her voice. She was in the living room, talking loudly on the cordless phone. Mom always raised her volume when she was excited. I took a step down the hallway, and then I heard my name. I froze. "Oh, Patricia, don't you worry," Mom was saying, laughter in her voice. "Anna will be perfect for watching all the kids." My heart gave a strange, hard thud. Watching? All the kids? I stayed where I was, half hidden by the wall. I knew I should announce myself. I knew it was wrong to eavesdrop. But my feet didn't move. "We're going to set up the family room downstairs with some movies and games," she continued. "And Anna can just stay down there with all 9 children while we adults enjoy Christmas upstairs in the living room. 9 children. The number hit me like a slap. Brandon and Chloe, Aunt Patricia's 3, Uncle Robert and Aunt Karen's 2, Derek's brother's kids. All of them. My fingers tightened on the strap of my bag. I know, Mom said, laughing. It's absolutely perfect, though. Anna doesn't have kids of her own, so she's not already exhausted from dealing with them all week like the rest of us parents. And she's the youngest adult in the family, so she has all that energy. My stomach lurched. She sounded delighted. Not like she was asking me for a favor she felt guilty about, like she'd discovered a clever loophole and couldn't wait to use it. On the other end of the line, Aunt Patricia must have said something, because Mom laughed again, even louder. Exactly, she said. We'll just stick all 9 kids downstairs with Anna, and we can have a real adult Christmas celebration. Good wine, actual conversations, maybe some card games. It's going to be wonderful. I'm telling you, Patricia, you don't need to bring any activities for the kids. Anna loves babysitting Brandon and Chloe every weekend. What's a few more for one day? It felt like the floor tilted under my feet. They had made a plan, not just about food, not just about where people would sit. They had planned my role without even asking me. Pay for the food, watch 9 kids, stay downstairs all night. I pressed myself back against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My cheeks burned, even though no one could see me. Of course. Why wouldn't they assume I'd just do it? I was the Saturday babysitter, the good daughter, the one who already shelled out thousands of dollars on catering without a protest. Why ask when they could just decide? My throat felt tight. Downstairs, surrounded by 9 screaming kids. Upstairs, candles and wine and laughter and plates of food I paid for. I swallowed the bitter taste rising in my mouth. Mom's voice softened on the phone. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without her. She helps so much and never complains. It's the perfect solution. I realized if I didn't move, if I didn't get myself under control, I was going to walk into that room and scream. So instead I did something else. I quietly backed up to the front door, opened it, then shut it again. Loud enough this time to make a noise. Mom, I'm here, I called out, forcing my voice to sound normal. Oh, Anna, sweetheart. Her tone instantly shifted to bright and innocent. A second later, she appeared in the hallway, cordless phone gone. What a lovely surprise. What brings you by tonight? I stared at her for a heartbeat, wondering how she could look so serene. Like she hadn't just completely mapped out my Christmas as 9-kid childcare. I swallowed. The restaurant called about the Christmas catering, I said evenly. They can't do the prime rib anymore. They want to substitute glazed ham instead. Is that okay with everyone? Her face relaxed with relief. Oh, that sounds perfect. Ham is delicious for Christmas. Whatever you think is best, honey. You're handling all of that. I trust your judgment. Of course she did. It wasn't her credit card on the line. Okay, I said, I'll call them back. She smiled, clearly eager to get back to whatever she'd been doing before. You're such a blessing, you know that? I don't know what I'd do without you. The words, meant to be affectionate, landed like another weight pressing down on my chest. I nodded, muttered something about needing to get back home, and walked out into the cold night air. The moment I sat in my car, the facade cracked. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My eyes burned. They hadn't asked if I wanted to watch 9 kids on Christmas. They hadn't asked if I was okay paying almost $2,000 for dinner. They had just designed the whole evening, my role included, without even seeing if I was willing. As I drove back to West Hartford, the Christmas lights on other people's houses blurred into streaks of color through my windshield. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, the shaking had turned into something else. Anger. Not the sharp, fleeting kind. The deep, low-burning kind that comes when you finally see a pattern clearly. This wasn't just about one night. It was about every Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m., every guilt trip at Sunday dinner, every time they had looked at my life and seen availability, not a person. Upstairs at my place, I dropped my bag on the couch and stood in the middle of my living room, breathing hard. They wanted me to pay for the feast. They wanted me to watch the children. They wanted me to disappear downstairs so they could enjoy the party I was funding. And the worst part? They were sure I would do it. They had no idea that something inside me had finally snapped. When I shut the door behind me that night, my apartment felt different. Still quiet, still warm, still smelling faintly of the vanilla candle I'd left burning earlier, but the air had a charge to it, like something was about to break loose. I dropped my keys on the counter, walked into the living room, and sat on the edge of the couch. My hands were balled into tight, aching fists, and my throat felt raw even though I hadn't cried. Not yet. Instead, I replayed the scene in my parents' house over and over again, like a film stuck on loop. Anna can watch all the kids. Just stick them downstairs with her. She loves babysitting every weekend. It's perfect. Perfect for them. The longer I sat there, the more something else began pushing its way through the anger. Clarity. For years, I'd been the reliable one, the flexible one, the one who rearranged my life to make everyone else's easier. And they had gotten so used to the convenience of me that they didn't even think twice before assigning me work I never agreed to. They didn't even ask. And that was what stung the most. It wasn't the babysitting, or the catering bill, or the way Mom had laughed, like I was a character she was placing on a game board. It was the assumption that my time, my money, my Christmas belonged to them, not to me. My pulse throbbed in my neck. My breathing felt uneven, too tight. I stood up and paced, back and forth, the same 4 steps across my rug. I didn't owe them this. I didn't owe them my salary. I didn't owe them my weekends. I didn't owe them my Christmas. And I sure as hell didn't owe them 12 hours trapped in a basement with 9 children while they toasted upstairs with wine and laughter. I stopped pacing. My decision came all at once, solid and unmistakable. I grabbed my phone, clicked on the contact for Seasons Restaurant, and hit call. It rang once. Hello, Seasons Restaurant. This is Ashley. The same cheerful voice from earlier answered. Hi, Ashley. This is Anna Kensington. Yes, of course. Are you calling about the ham substitution? No, I said. My own voice surprised me. Steady, almost eerily calm. Actually, I need to cancel the entire Christmas Eve catering order. She fell silent for a moment. The entire order? Yes. But Christmas is only a week away, she said, voice softening. Are you sure? That's a huge request. Yes, please cancel everything. I heard her typing. Okay, we can cancel it, but just so you're aware, there will be administrative fees deducted from your refund. You'll receive about $1,200 back. I felt a rush of relief that nearly made my knees wobble. That's fine. Please go ahead. We'll process the cancellation today. You'll receive an email confirmation. Thank you. After hanging up, I set my phone down and stood there, staring at the wall. Cancellation confirmed. Their grand Christmas feast? Gone. Their perfectly designed plan for me to be the holiday babysitter? Gone. They still had no idea. A small, almost startled laugh escaped me. It wasn't happy. It wasn't hysterical. It was freeing. I sat down on the couch, sinking into the cushions like I was deflating. My head fell back, eyes closed. I had undone their whole plan in a 7-minute phone call. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. I remembered Stephanie's voice on the phone weeks earlier. You don't have a husband. What else are you doing on Saturdays? And Mom's voice in the dining room. It's good practice for when you have your own kids. The guilt never belonged to me. They put it there. I sat up again, some of the tension released from my shoulders. But a new thought surfaced. A quiet, hesitant one. If I'm not going to my parents' house for Christmas, what am I doing? For as long as I could remember, Christmas had been the same routine. Same house, same table, same schedule, same obligations. I had never considered alternatives. My gaze drifted toward my bookshelf to a framed picture of me with my college friend Amanda. We were wearing matching ugly Christmas sweaters, grinning like we'd invented happiness. I tried to remember the last time we had talked. It had been a while. And then I remembered. 4 months earlier, her voice bubbly and excited over the phone. Anna, come spend Christmas with us. My parents rented the ski house in Stowe again. You'll love it. Skiing, hot chocolate, fireplaces. Come on, please. And me, without a second thought, laughing and saying, I can't. I always spend Christmas with my family. I stared at the picture for a long moment. Maybe. Just maybe. My hands were shaking slightly as I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, found Amanda, and pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Anna, oh my God, it's been forever. Hey, I said, and for the first time all day, I felt a small smile forming naturally. I know this is super last minute, but remember when you invited me to spend Christmas in Vermont? Yes, she said slowly. Don't tell me. Are you actually asking if the offer's still open? Is it? I held my breath. Are you kidding? Of course it is, she said, practically squealing. My parents would love to have you. We're driving up there on the 23rd. Can you make it? I can drive up after work on the 23rd, I said, pulse thrumming. Perfect. I'm texting you the address and the details. I'm so excited. Me too, I whispered, and I meant it. When the call ended, I exhaled so deeply it felt like I'd been holding my breath for months. The decision was made. I wasn't going to be the Christmas babysitter. I wasn't paying for a feast I wouldn't get to eat. I wasn't going to be used. This year, Christmas would be mine. For the next couple of days, the guilt tried to claw its way back in. Tiny whispers of, "You're abandoning your family. They're going to be angry. They'll think you're selfish." But each time I reminded myself, they had planned for me, not with me. They had assigned me a role I never agreed to. They had treated me like staff, not family. And I was done. December 23rd came quicker than I expected. I left work early, went home to grab the duffel bag I'd packed with sweaters, boots, and a ridiculous pair of fleece-lined leggings I'd bought on impulse. I tossed the bag into the back of my Honda CR-V and pulled out of the parking lot. Snowflakes drifted lightly over the highway as I drove north. The farther I got from Connecticut, the lighter I felt. The more miles I put behind me, the more the knot in my chest loosened. By the time I reached Burlington and pulled into Amanda's parents' driveway, my shoulders had fully relaxed for the first time in months. The front door swung open before I could knock. "Anna!" Amanda shouted, rushing out in fuzzy socks and hugging me so tight I squeaked. Tom and Linda followed, smiling warmly. "Welcome, honey," Linda said, pulling me into a motherly hug that didn't demand anything from me. "We're so happy you came." And for the first time in a long time, I felt wanted, not needed. I slept better that night than I had all year. The next morning, we all packed into 2 cars and headed up to Stowe. The ski house was everything Amanda had promised. Warm lights glowing through frosted windows, a fireplace crackling inside, snow piled high on the deck railings, pine-scented air, and the kind of silence that feels like a blanket. Christmas Eve morning was spent skiing, laughing, and drinking hot chocolate so thick it felt like dessert. By afternoon, we were all curled up on leather couches in front of the fire, covered in blankets, playing board games and arguing good-naturedly about who actually won the last round. Around 4 p.m., my phone lit up on the coffee table. "Mom!" Amanda glanced at me, eyebrows raised. "Showtime?" I stared at the name glowing on the screen. My chest tightened. My fingers trembled, only a little. "Yeah," I said, "it's time." I picked up the phone. "Hello?" "Anna," Mom snapped, her voice sharp and angry. "Where are you? Everyone is here waiting for you, and the food was supposed to arrive 2 hours ago." I closed my eyes. "Here we go." "Mom," I said softly, "I'm not coming to Christmas." Silence. Dead, stunned silence. Then, "What do you mean you're not coming?" Her voice rose, shrill. "Don't be ridiculous. Get over here right now." "I heard you," I said. "Last week, talking to Aunt Patricia about how I'd be watching 9 kids all night." Another silence, but this one was heavier. She recovered quickly. "I don't know what you think you heard, but you're being dramatic." I laughed. Not loudly, just a small, sad exhale. "I heard exactly what I heard." "You turn around right now, Anna." "No," I said. "Actually, I won't." In the background, I heard voices. Stephanie's, my dad's, cousins. Someone asking, "What's going on?" Then the phone shuffled, and Stephanie's voice came on, blistering with fury. "What the hell is wrong with you, Anna? We all plan to relax while you watch the kids. You're being completely selfish." I held the phone away from my ear for a second. When I brought it back, my voice was steady. "I'm tired of being your free babysitter, Stephanie, and I'm especially tired of you planning behind my back." "You ruined Christmas," she screeched. "Derek's family is here. The kids are asking where you are." "And the food?" Mom shouted in the background. "Where is the food?" I took a slow breath. I canceled the catering yesterday. The explosion on the other end was instant. "What? Are you insane? You did what? We have no dinner. You selfish little—" "Good luck," I said quietly. "I hope you all enjoy the holiday." And I hung up. Then, without hesitation, I turned my phone off and placed it face down on the table. Amanda stared at me, wide-eyed. "Well, that sounded intense. Are you okay?" I exhaled. And for the first time in years, "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm free." I left my phone turned off for the rest of Christmas Eve. Not on silent, not on do not disturb, fully, completely off. And the world didn't end. Instead, for the first time in years, I experienced what a holiday was supposed to feel like. Warmth, laughter, rest. People being together because they wanted to be, not because someone needed childcare or a wallet. That night, Amanda's mom, Linda, made her famous maple-glazed salmon and honey-roasted carrots. Her dad, Tom, opened a bottle of wine he'd been saving for a special occasion, and when Amanda teased him that every occasion was special to him, he grinned and poured anyway. After dinner, we all changed into pajamas and gathered around the fireplace. Someone put on an old Christmas playlist. Amanda attempted to teach me a ridiculous card game involving a wooden spoon. Tom and Linda told stories about their college days, and I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. It wasn't extravagant, but it was effortless. No one expected anything from me. No one barked orders. No one needed me to fix anything. I wasn't the caretaker. I wasn't the responsible one. I wasn't the designated babysitter. I was just part of the group. Included. Equal. It was everything I didn't realize I'd been starving for. On Christmas morning, we exchanged small, silly presents. Amanda gifted me fuzzy socks with reindeer on them and a mug that said wine tasting champion, and I gave her a Vermont candle I'd picked up in town the day before. We cooked breakfast together and then spent most of the morning outside, building a snowman that looked more like a snow blob but made us laugh anyway. When we finally came back inside, breathless and red-cheeked, I felt something I hadn't felt in a holiday season in years. Peace, no tension. No watching my words. No waiting for the next guilt trip. Just peace. By late afternoon, we were curled up in the living room again, drinking hot chocolate and watching an old Christmas movie. Snow was falling softly outside, coating the world in white. And then, my phone, which I had placed on the coffee table during breakfast, lit up. It buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Texts, calls, one name after another. I stared at the screen like it was a bomb. Amanda leaned over. "Do you want to?" "No," I said quickly. "Not yet." Instead, I let it buzz until the battery gave out again, the screen fading to black. But by the end of Christmas Day, I knew I couldn't avoid the fallout forever. Not because I felt guilty, surprisingly I didn't, but because I needed to know how bad the explosion had been. On the morning of December 26th, after we ate leftover pancakes and drank strong coffee, I finally plugged my phone back in. It booted up, and immediately, 52 missed calls, 34 unread text messages. The first were from Mom. "Call me back immediately. Where are you?" "This is unacceptable. The food never came. Anna, this is serious." Then they turned nastier. "You are being cruel. We are all suffering here. You ruined Christmas." Dad's messages weren't any better. The children were screaming all night. There was no food. We looked like fools. You caused this. Steph's were the worst. "You're unbelievable. We had to run to Stop and Shop like maniacs. The prime rib was sold out everywhere. Derek's family thinks we're incompetent. The kids cried because there was no proper dinner. How could you do this?" I scrolled through the thread, unread messages stacking up like a list of accusations aimed straight at my chest. But instead of guilt tightening around me like a noose, I laughed, quietly at first, then louder, until I had to wipe tears from my eyes. Amanda glanced over. "Good news?" "They had to watch the kids themselves," I said, still laughing. "All 9 of them. With no food, no plan, no me." Amanda's mouth fell open. "Poetic justice." "Better than that," I said. "It's karma." And the strange thing was, I wasn't celebrating their misery. I was celebrating my freedom. Their whole plan, the one where I paid for everything and babysat for 12 hours, had detonated in their hands. They thought they could design my Christmas, assign me a basement and 9 children, and I'd just play along like I always had. They really believed I wouldn't say no. And that belief had finally, beautifully blown up. I stayed in Stowe for 3 more days. We went ice skating, played more card games, and even did a late-night walk through the snowy woods with lanterns that made everything look like a fairy tale. I didn't check my phone again. I didn't need to. On December 29th, I hugged Amanda and her parents goodbye and drove home feeling clearer than I had in years. The guilt was gone. The exhaustion was gone. The resentment was gone. For the first time in my life, I had spent a holiday the way I wanted. And I wasn't going back. Not now, not ever. On the morning of December 30th, I woke up in my apartment, brewed fresh coffee, and sat down at my kitchen island with a sense of peace that still felt foreign. I had just taken my first sip when someone began hammering on my front door. Not knocking, hammering. My stomach sank. I set my mug down carefully, walked to the peephole, and peered through. Mom, Dad, Stephanie, all 3 of them. Faces flushed, eyes narrowed, determined. I closed my eyes briefly. A long breath in, a long breath out. Then I opened the door. Mom pushed past me immediately. "Don't you hello us, Anna." Dad stormed in after her, jaw tight. Stephanie slammed the door shut behind them. "We need to talk," Dad said, using the tone he used when I was a teenager caught breaking curfew. I folded my arms. "Okay, let's talk." Mom spun around, eyes blazing. "How could you do this to us, Anna? We had 28 people in our house and no food. None. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" Dad nodded sharply. "We had to tell everyone there was a mix-up. We looked like idiots." "And Derek's family?" Stephanie snapped, stepping forward. "They think we're completely disorganized now. His mother kept asking why we didn't have backup plans. And the children, Mom cried. All 9 of them running around screaming. It was chaos. Absolute chaos. I raised an eyebrow. Gee, that sounds exhausting. Dad pointed a finger at me. Don't be smart. You know exactly what you did. Yeah, I said calmly. I chose not to be your unpaid babysitter and caterer. Mom's eyes filled with angry tears. You're our daughter. You help family. Help, I repeated, or serve, because I'm pretty sure what you wanted wasn't help. You wanted free childcare and a free feast. Stephanie's face reddened. You're selfish. We work all week. We deserve to relax on holidays. And I don't? I asked. I work too. You don't have kids, she spat. You don't understand. I stared at her. No, I said finally. I don't have kids, which means Christmas isn't about me taking care of yours. Mom's voice hardened. Because of you, the entire holiday was ruined. Aunt Patricia said she's never coming back. Derek's brother left early. Everyone was miserable. I'm sure, I said, since you had to do what you planned to dump on me. The silence that followed was brittle. Then Mom straightened, wiping her eyes. Fine, she said coldly. If you feel this way, we're done. No more gatherings. No more invitations. You can be alone. Good, I replied instantly. All 3 of them stared at me, stunned. You'll regret this, Mom whispered. The only thing I regret, I said, is not standing up for myself sooner. Dad huffed, turning toward the door. We're leaving. She's made her choice. They filed out. Mom looked back one last time. When you realize what you've lost, she said, don't come crying to us. I won't, I said. And I meant every word. I closed the door behind them, locked it, and stood in silence. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. My chest didn't tighten. I felt okay. Better than okay. I felt free. After they stormed out, the silence in my apartment felt heavier than usual, dense, like an exhale that had been waiting years to be released. I stood there for several seconds, my hand still resting on the door handle, just breathing. Not shaking, not panicking, not second-guessing myself, just breathing. For the first time in my adult life, conflict hadn't shattered me. It had liberated me. I walked back to my kitchen island, picked up my coffee, and took a slow sip. It was cold now, but I didn't care. I leaned against the counter, letting the moment settle over me. My family had drawn a line. I had drawn mine. And for once, mine actually felt like a boundary, not an apology. Over the next few days, the expected calls from extended relatives trickled in one by one. Aunt Patricia, your mother is devastated. You need to fix this. Uncle Robert, you broke your mother's heart. She's been crying for days. Cousin Nicole, just apologize. It's Christmas. Don't be stubborn. I hung up every time, because none of them were calling to listen. None of them were asking, Anna, what happened? Are you okay? They all called to push me back into the role they were comfortable with. The flexible one, the reliable one, the helper, the one who never says no. But the woman they wanted wasn't here anymore. I refused to be a character in their script. 3 months passed. And slowly, surely, the version of my life I had been too exhausted to imagine began to take shape. My Saturdays were mine again. Not borrowed, not negotiated, not stolen by obligation. Mine. I slept in. I went out for brunch with friends. I tried new skincare routines because I finally had the time. I wandered through farmers markets. I took long walks around Elizabeth Park with a podcast playing in my earbuds. And without the constant drain of being on call for someone else's children, something strange and unexpected happened. I got happy. Not ecstatic, not fireworks, just steady, peaceful happy. The kind that grows roots. My apartment felt different too. Lighter, less cluttered, no tiny socks under the couch or half-full juice pouches forgotten on the counter. I could go out on a Friday night without calculating how tired I'd be for 12 hours of babysitting the next morning. I found myself remembering who I was when no one needed anything from me. And apparently, that person was someone other people wanted to get to know. In mid-February, I went to a wine tasting event with a coworker. That's where I met Jake. He was standing by the table with the bold reds, wearing a navy sweater and a smile that didn't look practiced. When my coworker bumped into me from behind, I nearly spilled my glass, and Jake caught it with a reflex that made me blink. Careful, he said, eyes warm. That bottle costs more than my college textbooks. I laughed, a real one. We ended up talking for 20 minutes about everything except the wine, travel, music, the best breakfast places in Hartford. He was direct but gentle, funny but not performative, confident without being loud. When he asked if he could take me out sometime, I didn't hesitate. And for the first time ever, I didn't have to run a mental calculation like, Okay, but what if Stephanie drops the kids off early next Saturday? What if they stay late? What if mom asks a favor? What if... None of those questions existed anymore. My weekends were free. Free to explore possibilities. Free to build a life that wasn't defined by other people's needs. Dating Jake felt calm, easy, simple, refreshing. He texted when he said he would. He listened when I talked. He asked questions, not because he needed information, but because he wanted to understand me. He never once made me feel like less because I didn't have a husband or kids. He never once implied that my worth was measured by service. It was new, lovely, and exactly what I didn't know I needed. Around early March, I got a call from my cousin Nicole again. I almost didn't pick up. My phone had become a no-family zone, but curiosity won. "Anna," she said without preamble, "your mom's been talking to everyone. She says she wants to reconcile but doesn't know how." I closed my eyes briefly. "Nicole, I told everyone the same thing. I won't talk to them unless they acknowledge what they did." "They're never going to say they used you," Nicole sighed. "You know that." "They don't have to use that word," I said, "but they need to admit they took advantage of me. For years. Every weekend. Every holiday. Every time I tried to speak up, they dismissed me. I'm not pretending that didn't happen." Nicole hesitated. "So, you're really not going to talk to them?" "I'm open," I said. "If they're honest. If they're willing to understand my side. But I'm not walking back into that house while they're still pretending I wronged them by protecting my own time." There was a long pause. "I get it," she finally said. "I actually do." After we hung up, I realized something important. My family wanted me back, but I didn't need them back. Not like before. Not at the cost of myself. By mid-March, Jake and I were officially seeing each other. We planned weekend hikes and Friday night dinners. He met some of my friends. They loved him. One evening, as we shared a bottle of red wine on my balcony, the city lights twinkling below, he asked casually, "What did you do last Christmas?" I laughed into my glass. "Oh, a lot, and also nothing." He raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a story." "It is," I said, smiling, "but I'll tell you someday." For once, it felt like a story with a good ending, not a wound that still needed stitching. Later that night, I received a text from Amanda. "Stowe again next Christmas? Please say yes." I smiled. "Absolutely, I'll bring Jake." She responded instantly. "Yes! Best news ever. You deserve another perfect Christmas." I set my phone down and felt that warm, quiet kind of joy settle in my chest again. Not the fleeting kind, the lasting kind. The kind you earn when you finally stop letting people drain you dry. If I've learned anything from this whole mess, it's this. Family shouldn't mean sacrificing your time, your energy, your money, or your sanity for someone else's convenience. Family shouldn't manipulate you into roles you never agreed to play. Family shouldn't guilt you into exhaustion and call it love. Real family, the kind you choose or the kind that chooses you back, treats you like an equal, respects your boundaries, values your time, appreciates your presence, doesn't expect you to carry every burden alone. And the moment I understood that, my life finally made sense. This year, Christmas won't be a trap. It won't be a guilt trip. It won't be a basement full of screaming kids while everyone else has fun upstairs. This year, Christmas will be mine. And I can't wait. It has now been 3 full months since that cold December morning when my family stood in my apartment, voices sharp, fingers pointed, and eyes full of accusation. 3 months since I shut the door behind them and felt, for the first time in years, like I could finally breathe without permission. 3 months without their demands. 3 months without their guilt. 3 months without their constant reminders that, in their eyes, I was the backup adult in the family. Not a daughter, not a sister, but a resource. And in those 3 months, something incredible happened. My life filled itself back in. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, like a house warming room by room after a long winter. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Real silence. No 8:30 a.m. Saturday doorbell. No unexpected knocking. No children racing through my living room. No last-minute, "Hey, can you take the kids today?" messages. My weekends were empty in a way they had never been before, and it was beautiful. I slept in until 10 a.m. without jerking awake to imagined footsteps. I drank coffee slowly, savoring each sip instead of gulping it before a small crisis broke out. I walked to Elizabeth Park, sat by the rose garden, and read books I hadn't touched in years. The quiet didn't feel lonely. It felt like oxygen. Then came the rediscovery of time. I'd never realized how much of my life had been carved out and consumed by responsibilities I never chose. When those responsibilities vanished, they left behind a strange, unfamiliar abundance. I joined a Saturday yoga class. I tried new recipes. I reorganized my closet. I took myself on movie dates. I signed up for a pottery workshop with a coworker. One day, I even went on a last-minute weekend trip with friends to Boston, something I would have never been able to do before without getting a furious message from Stephanie demanding to know why I wasn't home. But this time, my phone stayed silent. And then there was Jake. What started as a casual wine tasting conversation unfolded into something steady, warm, and refreshingly uncomplicated. He never made me feel like I had to earn my place. He never treated my time like it was a communal resource. He never implied that I existed to take care of others first. We went to brunch on Sundays, tried new restaurants on Friday nights, and spent slow Saturdays exploring bookstores and antique shops. We even took a weekend trip to Newport in early March. Foggy mornings, seafood dinners, long walks by the ocean. It felt like breathing in a new chapter of my life. One night, sitting on my couch with our legs tangled under a blanket, he said, "You always look so at peace on weekends, like you're finally getting something back." I smiled into his shoulder. I guess I am. Of course, my family didn't go silent forever. Every few weeks, a relative would call. "Anna, your mom misses you. Anna, your dad feels awful. Anna, you should be the bigger person. Anna, it's time to reconcile." But none of them said the one thing that mattered. Not one person asked me what I needed. Not one person acknowledged the truth. Not one person said the words, "We used you. We took advantage of you. We didn't treat you like an equal. We never listened when you said no." So whenever someone pushed the reconciliation angle, I answered the same way. I'll talk to them when they're ready to admit what they did. Not half of it, the whole thing. So far, nobody has stepped up to that conversation. And that's fine, because I'm not the same woman who would have run back at the first hint of peace just to make everyone else comfortable. I don't owe them my time. I don't owe them my emotional labor. I don't owe them my silence to preserve their comfort. For the first time in my life, my boundaries are real, and I know how to protect them. Something else happened too. As I pulled away from the people who only saw me as useful, I drew closer to the people who saw me as me. Amanda and I grew even closer after Christmas. We talked weekly, shared pictures of our daily chaos, sent each other memes at 1 a.m., and when she texted, "Christmas in Stowe again this year? Back by popular demand?" I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely, I'll bring Jake if he's free." She responded with fireworks emojis. And in that moment, I realized something profound. The best Christmas of my life wasn't the one surrounded by blood relatives. It was the one surrounded by people who chose me, people who valued me, people who didn't assign me a role, I created my own. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the girl I used to be, the one who tiptoed around her family's moods, the one who rearranged her life to fit everyone else's convenience, the one who apologized just for wanting a Saturday to herself, the one who swallowed resentment instead of speaking truth. I want to hug her. I want to tell her, "You were never wrong for wanting rest. You were never selfish for wanting your own life. You were never ungrateful for wanting to be seen as an equal. You were never meant to spend your life in the basement with 9 kids while everyone else enjoyed the party." And I want to tell her something else too. You deserve better, and you finally gave it to yourself. So here's the truth. I don't know if I'll reconcile with my family. Maybe someday, maybe not. It all depends on whether they can meet me where I am now. A grown woman with boundaries. A daughter, but not a servant. A sister, but not a solution. A person, not a convenience. And I'm not lowering myself back to the version of me they preferred. Not anymore. This Christmas, I'm going back to Stowe, with or without Jake, with or without reconciliation. Because now I know what a holiday feels like when it isn't survival. And because sometimes the biggest gift you can give yourself isn't forgiveness or compromise. It's freedom. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to choose peace. Freedom to make your own traditions. Freedom to say, "No, not anymore.